The High Cost of Power. Chapter 1: The King of Manhattan. In the towering glass-walled office on the 80th floor of a sleek Manhattan skyscraper, Michael Voss was every bit the embodiment of power. At 50, he had amassed a fortune so vast, his name was whispered with reverence, fear, and envy. Michael wasn't just part of the 1%, he was the 0.01%, the few who played with the wealth and fate of entire industries. He sat behind his expansive mahogany desk, overlooking the sprawling city below. From this altitude, everything seemed tiny, irrelevant. The people below moved like ants, as if their individual lives had little consequence. Michael lived his life above the masses. He was larger than life, untouchable. Money wasn't just something he had, it was an extension of his being. Money bought freedom, influence, power, and people. But as he swiveled in his Italian leather chair, staring into the morning fog that had rolled in from the harbor, Michael couldn't ignore the creeping sensation that power, as intoxicating as it was, came with its own set of complications. And these complications weren't confined to boardrooms or legal battles. No, they were far more personal, far more dangerous. It had all started 6 months ago. Chapter 2: Anna the Ambitious Assistant. Anna Lawson was the first. She had started working as Michael's executive assistant 3 years ago. Ambitious, intelligent, and strikingly beautiful, Anna was one of those women who understood the delicate balance of using her beauty and brains to her advantage. She was quick-witted, detail-oriented, and always had a way of reading the room before anyone else. Anna was attracted to power, and Michael was the epitome of it. Late nights working together led to innocent flirtations. Those flirtations, however, quickly spiraled into something more. Michael knew better than to mix business with pleasure, but there was something about Anna, something intoxicating. One night, after too much whiskey during a business dinner, they had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Their affair started with stolen moments behind closed doors, passionate and reckless. Anna knew how to make him feel invincible, like the king of the world. It wasn't long before she hinted at wanting more attention, more time, and ultimately more control. But just as quickly as it started, the affair unraveled. Anna's ambition was a double-edged sword, and when she found out she was pregnant, it became a weapon. She thought her condition would give her leverage over Michael, maybe even a foothold in his world beyond just being an assistant. But Michael had no intention of letting anyone, not even Anna, dictate his life. Chapter 3: Claudia the Model. Claudia Ruiz was different from Anna in every way. A rising star in the world of high fashion, she was the kind of woman who could stop traffic just by stepping out of her car. She was alluring, exotic, and had a body sculpted by genetics and discipline. Michael met her at an exclusive event in Monaco. Claudia wasn't the type to be impressed by wealth. She had seen enough of it to know it could be shallow. But Michael intrigued her. He wasn't like the other men who threw their money around to impress her. He had a quiet, almost predatory confidence that spoke to something darker and more powerful. Their affair was intense, like the rush of gambling with high stakes. Michael adored her for her beauty and her ability to make him feel alive in ways his empire never could. She was the wildness he craved, the thrill he didn't know he was missing. But what had started as a thrilling escape turned serious when Claudia informed him that she was pregnant. She seemed to think the pregnancy was something they could navigate together, perhaps even something that would bind them closer. Michael, however, saw it as a complication. Another complication. He didn't love Claudia. She was a fling, a distraction from the stress of his empire. But now she had a piece of him, a piece he couldn't easily discard. Chapter 4: Lena the Socialite. Lena Darlington was the type of woman who had everything, except for the one thing she really wanted: Michael Voss. Lena was a socialite, a fixture in the high society circles of New York City. Born into wealth, she had been raised in a world of privilege, luxury, and expectations. To everyone else she had it all: a perfect life, perfect looks, perfect everything. But perfection was an illusion. Beneath the surface, Lena was deeply dissatisfied with her life. The one thing she lacked was purpose, and Michael Voss represented everything she desired: drive, power, and control. To Lena, he was more than just a man. He was a way to make her life feel meaningful. Their relationship wasn't explosive like it was with Claudia or calculated like it was with Anna. It was a slow burn, a dangerous dance of flirtation that simmered over months. Lena wasn't the type to rush into things. She was strategic. She had set her sights on Michael long before he even noticed her. And when he finally did, she ensnared him with ease. It was a game to her at first. She wanted to see how far she could go, how much she could make him fall for her. But when she realized she was pregnant, the game stopped being fun. Lena had expected a thrill, not consequences. She had expected to keep Michael as a toy, not become part of his tangled personal life. Now she was trapped in a reality she had never wanted. A child with a man who already had more complications than she could count. Chapter 5: Veronica the Journalist. Of all the women, Veronica Haynes was the most dangerous. A respected journalist known for her hard-hitting investigative work, Veronica had interviewed Michael on numerous occasions. At first, their relationship was strictly professional, but there was an undeniable tension between them, one that simmered every time they were in the same room. Veronica wasn't like the other women in Michael's life. She wasn't dazzled by his wealth or power. She was smart enough to see through his charm and calculated persona. But that didn't stop her from being drawn to him. For Michael, Veronica represented the one thing he couldn't control: truth. Their affair was brief but intense. Veronica wasn't looking for anything more than a physical connection, a release from the pressures of her career. She wasn't interested in being part of Michael's world. In fact, she had spent much of her career exposing men like him, powerful, wealthy men who thought they were untouchable. But even she wasn't immune to the consequences of their actions. When Veronica found out she was pregnant, she was devastated. She wasn't ready for a child. She hadn't planned for this. And now she was faced with a decision she never thought she'd have to make. Did she keep the child and become tied to a man she had spent years critiquing? Or did she make the decision to walk away and leave Michael to his empire? Chapter 6: The Collapse. Michael had always been in control. He had built his empire with precision, crushing his competitors and acquiring power like it was his birthright. But now his carefully constructed world was crumbling. For women, for pregnancies, each one a ticking time bomb in his life. Anna had tried to leverage her pregnancy to force his hand, demanding financial support and threatening to go public if he didn't comply. She had underestimated Michael's ruthlessness. He offered her a significant sum to disappear and cut all ties, but Anna, ever ambitious, wanted more. She refused, determined to stake her claim in his world. Claudia was heartbroken. She had believed, perhaps foolishly, that Michael cared for her. When she told him about the pregnancy, she had expected him to be supportive, even excited. Instead, he had grown distant, cold. Claudia, in her despair, considered walking away from the fashion world altogether. But with a child on the way, she had to think about her future, and she wasn't sure if there was a place for Michael in it. Lena, ever the socialite, tried to manage the situation with grace. She had connections, resources, and knew how to play the game. But even she couldn't escape the reality of her situation. She had wanted Michael, but not like this, not with the baggage of a child complicating things. And yet she found herself trapped, unsure of how to proceed. Veronica, true to her nature, confronted Michael head-on. She didn't ask for his help or his money. She wanted answers. She wanted to know how he could live with himself, how he could treat people like disposable objects. Michael had no answers for her. In the end, Veronica made the decision to raise her child on her own, determined to ensure her son or daughter would never be a pawn in Michael's world. Chapter 7: The Reckoning. As the months passed, Michael found himself increasingly isolated. His once flawless public image was starting to crack. Rumors circulated, whispered among the elites of Manhattan's upper echelon. The tabloids were sniffing around, and even some of his closest business allies began to distance themselves, worried about the fallout. Each woman posed a different threat. Anna was the most vocal, threatening to go public with her story if Michael didn't give her what she wanted. Claudia's silence was perhaps the most painful. She had once been his escape, his thrill, but now she was a reminder of his mistakes. Lena, with her social connections, could ruin him in the circles that mattered most. And Veronica? Veronica held the power of the pen, the ability to expose him for what he truly was. Michael had spent his entire life building walls around himself, keeping his personal life separate from his business empire. But now those walls were crumbling, and the consequences of his actions were closing in. He had always believed that power meant control, that with enough money, influence, and charisma, he could bend the world to his will. But now, faced with the reality of 4 children, for lives he had created but had no intention of raising, he was forced to confront the truth. Money couldn't solve everything. It couldn't undo the pain he had caused. It couldn't fix the broken relationships or repair the damage to his reputation. And for the first time in his life, Michael Voss realized that real power, came at a price he was no longer willing or able to pay. Chapter 8. Legacy. As the years passed, Michael's empire began to shift. He remained a powerful figure, but the once unshakable confidence that had defined him had eroded. His interactions with the mothers of his children were strained at best. He provided financial support as was expected, but he kept his distance, unwilling to engage in the messy complexities of fatherhood. Anna moved on, eventually starting her own business and raising her child without much input from Michael. Claudia, after a brief hiatus from the fashion world, returned stronger than ever, determined to raise her child without relying on Michael's wealth. Lena remained in the upper echelons of society, navigating the scandal with grace and maintaining her image. Veronica continued her journalism career, raising her child with the fierce independence that had always defined her. And Michael? He remained alone, a king in his high tower, surrounded by wealth, power, and an empire he had built from the ground up. But for all his success, for all his money and influence, he found himself haunted by the legacy he had left behind. Not the one he had envisioned, but the one shaped by the lives he had touched and ultimately broken. In the end, Michael Voss learned the hard way that power isn't just about what you can control. It's about what you can live with. And some things, no matter how much money you have, you can never escape. The end.